Hello everybody and welcome back. This is part 2 of me commenting on my thoughts and ideas about the different body language and psychology that I see in the Chris Watts footage. And thank you to my subscribers. I just wanted to say that if you guys want to watch the footage without hearing any commentary or anything like that, then the video that I am watching now comes from True Crime Troy, Troy, and you can go and look up his channel, and under his videos or playlists it should say, Chris Watts footage or whatever, and you can watch that. And it's just that, no one commenting. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's get right back into it. Chris has just got the ring and from the room and brought it back out to make sure that he shows Nikki and the police officer to kind of insinuate that, look, see, Shanann could have left me. She really just doesn't want to be in this marriage anymore. She left. And then now he is coming back out of the room after showing them and putting the ring back. Still in that phone.
Does she do her work from a laptop, or is it just
phone?
Just from the phone?
What about your bank account? I tried it. Her logins are different than mine.
It's not a joint account.
It's a joint account, but like she controls all of it. Like she doesn't let me do the finances because I was pretty horrible back in the day, so she just kind of handles all that. And she does it. I have the apps on my phone, but I don't have her login to get into it.
Okay.
So everything that he just said is bull. And the police officer and Nikki know it. They live in the normal world just like everyone else. And Chris, the gargoyle, just mentioned that that's a joint account. So what that means is it doesn't matter if you yourself are Shanann. You're married to Shanann and you're her husband. You can show up at the bank with an ID and whatever and identify who you are and why you need to look at the activity. You can call. There's several things that you can do, especially since it's a joint account. Don't insult the intelligence of Nikki and the police officer and everyone else in the world like we're stupid and we don't know that there's a lot of things that you can do and you just don't want to. That's why Nikki just had her hands on the back of her head, rubbing her hair, because she's in her head. The body language is saying to me, that's saying, this is such bullshit. He's such bullshit. Where's my friend and their children?
I don't have a laptop, but she has someone downstairs. So, but her login, I don't know her login. Like I know the password, but I don't know her login for user or anything.
You don't have to know it.
It's always the same password, capital SW. But it's just a matter of getting the login.
Many things you can do, idiot.
Right, if she's getting gas or...
Yeah, somewhere.
What days does she typically do work?
Every day.
Every day?
Yeah, always.
What was the name of the company again?
Lebel. Lebel.
Where are they based out of?
Texas. But they don't have like they don't have like an office. It's just always.
Does she have someone that she reports to though?
She has her leaders, but they're both in northeast part of the country. Like that, she has Addie Maloney. She has
More sweat on his face.
Aikman. She has Sam Paisley.
More flushing of white all over his, red all over his cheeks. Pacing back and forth.
Do you have her phone number? Yeah.
That look on his face just there said to me, when I'm reading the face, it said, how am I going to fix everything that I've said to this police officer and to them? how am I going to get around this? Let me think of what I was saying and what I was doing. How can I get out of this? You know, because he knows he's getting more and more caught up here.
What'd you say her last name was?
Looking down to try to think of how he can get out of this. He's in deep shit. They're not believing me. How can I get out of this? What can I say or do?
There was no note or anything by the wedding ring?
No, of course not.
Is any of her clothes, anything like that missing? It didn't look like she went through and packed up
No, I mean,
a bag
she
or
has
anything.
This, and all that on the bottom, so it'd be kind of hard to tell if she took a little bit, or I mean, it'd be easy to tell if she took a lot, but it's hard to tell if she took a little bit or not.
Okay. Did she tell you anything about?
Now, I had one viewer comment on the bottom of my comments say, I think that there was one part of the video previously, and he was sort of like trying to look into the room to see what either Nikki was doing or Nikki's daughter was doing, you know, in one of the rooms inside his house. But she made a comment and said, I think that he got spooked out for a minute because Nikki's daughter, Madison, was in the room, you know, because she's used to playing with Bella and Celeste, and so she's comfortable with the house. And then he looks and he glances twice to kind of go back and see, oh, what was that I just saw? And the commenter said that he might have been spooked out for a second because he's still got an evil, wicked sort of a feeling and a spirit to him after killing his daughters and his wife. And so he kind of got spooked out for a second and might have thought for just a second that was his daughter that he was looking at. So he goes back to look into the room. Now I want to know, how many of you guys think that he's got that same feeling by looking at Shanann's clothes right now? Think that spooks him out because of the wickedness and the wicked spirit of what he's done? It's all over and in the energy field of the room.
About leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, the last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she's going to take the kids to a friend's house, and that's where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today. I've never heard anything. But cars here.
Right.
Are here. Unless somebody came and picked her up. But the people that I know, nobody's heard from her. Nobody's seen her.
Right.
So he definitely, what he just said and the way that he said it, when he said, she said she was going to take the kids to a friend's house. And he had to pause in between everything that he said was because he had to think of his lie and what he told everyone. And he wanted to make sure that it was delivered out of his mouth correctly. So he took his time in saying it and he paused throughout the words. You know, he knows that he's not going to get away with it. He must know now, right? As far along as we are into this. And that look that he has on his face right now is very dark. It's a very dark look in his eyes right now.
Who do you guys bank with?
Chase and USA.
That's a nervous sort of getting close to the officer's pen and notepad to see what he's writing. That's all nervousness.
Definitely an odd one.
I don't know what I can do right now. Should I drive around like the normal route that she would be?
Where does she normally go to?
I mean, just like drive where like she would normally take the kids to school. People that I know that live down, people that live, Kristen lives down that way. I mean, that's the only routes I can know she would really take.
She go to their house frequently, or?
And not much, but.
Don't try to pretend that now you're concerned and want to go and get in your car and take the route and that Shanann would drive and go and see if you can see anything or get any clues as to where your family is. Don't pretend that you're concerned now. You didn't even want to go to the pool when Nikki mentioned that they could be at the pool because, quote unquote, it was a hot day, and they don't go swimming on a hot day. They're like Russians. They go in a cold day, they go swimming, right? Now you're concerned and you want to go scanning the neighborhood?
Hey. I'll still talk to the officer right now. Okay, bye. I will, definitely.
Hand on the back of the head, Nikki, she's going, it's bullshit. Bullshit. That was Shanann's mom.
Just drive around, see if
On the
Probably
phone.
not, because, I mean, you don't know what car she's in, where she's at.
Look at that evil smile that he just gave us. That gave me chills when he smiled like that with those teeth. Let me rewind that. Let's look at that again.
you think it's smart just drive around, see if
Probably not, because, I mean, you don't know what car she's in, where she's at. I mean, obviously, you're not going to see her car. It's here.
Well, I know Amanda's out of town because her brother died.
Yeah.
She's not flying back till Jose. And the other one, she's in.
what else do you think I could do?
Yeah.
Just wait for her here?
Well, I've got my detective coming,
Okay.
just because this is kind of an odd situation. See if we can try to get her pinpointed down, find a friend or something.
Okay.
He may have you call the bank.
Okay. Hey, sir, it's Chris Watson. Not too bad. Have you heard from Shanann today? No, I have not. I was just, you're my last person to call. So I just, all right. I don't want to make you nervous or anything, but I'll keep you posted. No. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, so now it is that the police officer is going to involve his detective, and the detective is going to come over because he obviously suspects more, and the situation is now escalated. Chris knows that the situation has now escalated. That's why this conversation with Sarah, which is either a supervisor or a person that Shanann worked with, that conversation Chris just had over the phone with Sarah, it was very awkward, and it was once again a nervous conversation. As soon as Sarah answered the phone, Chris goes, "Hey Sarah, this is Chris Watts." He said it very quickly because his mind was racing after the police officer told him that now the detective is coming. So he understands that the situation has now escalated. He's going to start processing that information. And he's starting to understand that he's not going to get away with whatever it was that he planned. And this murder was planned very poorly by him. Okay, so the whole conversation that he just had with Sarah was a very nervous one. When he laughed and said, "You're my last person to call," so that was a very nervous laugh. And he just gives himself away more and more.
She lives around here.
She lives in Aurora.
Or
You okay?
Yeah, I want to sponsor. Because she's smelly.
That was Chris that just asked Nikki's son, if the child was okay, if Madison, the little girl, was okay. Don't try to pretend that you are interested in if she's okay and if she feels all right, because you don't even care about your own children. You smothered them, and you strangled your wife, and you smothered your kids and put them in a vat of hot, boiling, toxic, fuming oil. So don't try to pretend that you are concerned about anyone's children, because you're not even concerned about your own. Kill them.
She's a funny. Need you better? Yeah? Alright, good.
you been in the oil field?
Since 2015, well, Anarco 2015 January, Covenant year before that. After that, I worked on cars for 11 years.
You liking it?
I love the fact that I don't have to get carpal tunnel on my wrist. That's what I left it for. Left car business for.
Right.
Because it was destroying my body. The oil field is less repetitive as far as the same stuff over and over, just doing that all the time.
Right.
A lot of lifting, but other than that, it's perfect for what I do. It gives me time with the kids. Like I used to be on an 8 days on, 6 days off, but now I'm on 5 and 2, so let's go back to 8 to 6 next month. So I'm getting a lot more time with the kids. That's what I'm excited about.
Right.
Get for a break.
He just had to mention the fact that his job gives him a lot of more time with the kids 2 times to try to get the police officer to believe that he really does love his kids. And I'm grateful for this job because the other job didn't allow me much time with the kids. You took all the time that you would have had with your kids away from your own self by murdering them. You are a gargoyle.
Do you have any medical conditions other than lupus?
Fibromyalgia, rosacea. She thought she had RA, but she took a lot of medication in North Carolina. She stopped a bunch of it when she moved here. But she has some flare-ups here and there.
When did she move here?
She moved here in 2012.
Okay. No, like recent, is she taking any kind of medication?
Imitrex for migraines and some Monteg class for like allergies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Stuff for nausea.
Nothing's changed as far as medication-wise?
No, not that I know of. Not that she said.
Any kind of behavioral changes, anything like that recently?
Going through the separation. That's the only behavior changes. Those things more mugging off.
So we just heard Chris list some of the medications that Shanann was taking and has taken in the past. And from what we do know, now that the case, we've gotten further and further into the case, what us that have been studying the case know is that he claims to have given some Oxycontin to Shanann to try to cause a miscarriage because he really didn't want his unborn son, Nico. So he tried to cause a miscarriage by giving her oxycodone, which I don't understand. That's not going to necessarily cause miscarriage. But how many of you guys, please do comment in the comment section and tell me how many of you guys believe that it was Chris's lover, the Gorgon, Nicole Kessinger, that gave him the oxycodone, which he claimed that he was going to take that information to the grave and he wasn't going to tell anybody where he got it. But then not even 24 hours later, he's telling us where he quote unquote got it, and it was inside of some of Shanann's old medication supply.
Okay. Tell him I'll be there in just a minute. What's that?
So now we are going into the part of the surveillance footage where the neighbor, Nate, who we see here, has brought over the police officer and Chris to watch footage from that morning. And this would be footage that his own camera in his video surveillance of his house caught. And the camera was pointed towards Chris Watts' house. So now we're watching Chris Watts and the police officer watching on the screen and seeing what happened that morning. And this is unbelievable to watch this and to watch the murderer see himself and what he was doing. So let's pay attention to this part.
Lay down. Loaded my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers, tools that I had in the toolbox. I knew I was gonna have to do some pumping into rubbers today.
So he's immediately explaining what he quote unquote put inside of his truck that morning. Before the video even starts and before Nate even plays the video, he's already trying to explain the objects and the items that he was putting in his truck on the surveillance. Why are you automatically, immediately trying to explain it before the officer can even see the footage? It's all guilt.
So I was out so far.
Is this on continually
Yep.
recording?
Yep. Well,
It's not, is it
any
motion or is it,
event,
okay, so it's motion.
any motion event that happens, but I get cars driving from this street,
Notice,
with him at 517.
notice how Chris doesn't want to look at it.
We usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in. Be easier to lugging everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
Still explaining what the objects were that he was putting in his truck. You were putting a dead body of your wife in your truck. Those hands over both of his arms over his head like that, he knows that now he's definitely not going to get away with what he has done. It's a defeated body posture. He feels defeated now. You know how police officers will catch the criminal and say, put your hands over your head or whatever? And it's a sort of a you're caught in the act sort of pose. He's very guilty and caught in the act and nervous right now.
What else can I do with this?
My detective just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might have you call like the bank and see if there's any kind of activity.
Because if there is any sort of action out
I know
there,
his camera's
I
like,
would have got it.
like
Right.
we had issues the other week when people were stealing stuff out of like garages and stuff like that, and I had parked my truck
I
right
had
here.
to park right here.
Yeah. So someone
See if
I
any,
Another YouTuber mentioned that the glasses slipped from the top of his head towards his eyebrows and his eyes because of all the sweat all over his forehead and being very nervous. So another YouTuber noticed that. And he just continuously explains what he was putting inside of the truck. Very interesting, because what he was putting inside of the truck was his family members. Bella, who was, I believe, still alive, and his wife, who was dead in the back bed of the truck. And there's a reason why I believe Bella was still alive, and it's because you can find footage of a little bit, getting closer into Nate's camera, and Nate's own camera footage. You can find videos of it, and it gets closer in towards the truck, and you see a child's footsteps and shadow walking towards the truck. Okay, so we know that at least Bella was alive. We don't see a second shadow, and that would explain that Celeste, the younger child, was also alive. But we only see that one child walk towards the truck. And I do believe that child looked a little bit older, about 4 years old, the shadow. So I do believe that Bella was alive. Not sure about Celeste.
see where someone tried to jimmy with a flathead screwdriver over there, and it was just like,
but if any action would have happened, any cars or anything left your house, I would
yeah,
have
if it
got
would
it.
have been like right in that area, they should have picked me.
Oh, it'll pick up anything coming down the street.
So what Nate just said, but if anybody left your house, I would have picked it up. What Nate's trying to tell him, sugarcoating his words a little bit, but what he's trying to tell him is, hey, dude, don't you understand that we don't see anything else except for you leaving your house? Don't you understand that? And Chris he knows he's caught, but he's still trying to avoid the thought of now him being caught and not getting away with what he did.
This way.
You know where that trigger is?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Watch, I'll show you. There's nothing on here. We've already watched that one. But like, you'll see this car.
What security system do you have?
You can see this car starting to drive down the street.
That one.
Oh, what?
See what I'm saying? It picks up all the way down there.
Trent.
Next door.
Chris was trying to change the subject just now and say it's a pretty good system you have. He's trying to sort of change the subject and talk about something else and kind of point something out to gain some sort of favorance.
Talking about dispatcher. It'll be code 4.
Yeah, we can pick up cars coming this way. I get anything coming this way and make it.
That was very nervous as well when the police officer had something to say into his walkie-talkie, and Chris was then looking towards the police officer to see what that was about, and he goes, "What, do you want me to go to your deputy? Is your deputy outside, or do you want me to go?" That was very nervous as well. He can't stop showing his body language. He can't cover it up.
Turn. So, and usually at night I pick up the car going to your turn. So,
He wants to be away from the situation.
Yeah, but I would have caught her walking out.
That he just turned away from the camera and away from Nate and the police officer and sort of walked away for a second and turned his whole head away because of what Nate just said. Nate just said, "I would have caught her walking out," talking about Shanann. "I would have caught her walking out." So now Chris is turning away from them, and then his body language is going, "Oh my gosh, shit, he's right."
Diesel.
You're good.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
No, that's it.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
Definitely a very important part of this video is what we just saw. Pay attention to the commercial that just came on Nate's screen, the TV screen. That commercial is a commercial for a certain show that's out on HBO or Showtime or some type of show. And I do believe, because I have cable services, I do know that a commercial for a show will play several times. And because they want you to watch a show, so they'll play it several times, you know, throughout weeks or whatever for you to see the advertisement. So I personally think that Chris saw this advertisement before he killed Shanann and the kids. And because he works in the oil field, he got his idea of what he was going to do with the bodies and how he was going to kill everyone from this commercial. Tell me what you guys think. You can rewind the video and take a look at what the commercial depicted, and you will see that it is exactly what he did. When the fetus comes on into the commercial and you see the growing fetus, Chris gets nervous and he turns away from the camera and he looks at the police officer and he goes, "And she's pregnant too." Talking about his wife. She was pregnant with his son. Okay. And I think that Chris has seen this commercial before, and he got his idea of what he was going to do to his family from this commercial. Because from the fetus, the camera goes down, and then the commercial becomes a skull coming up from black oil. The skull is emerging from black oil. And Chris works in the oil field. So I believe that he saw this commercial way before he killed Shanann, and he got an idea from this commercial. And I can't believe that no other YouTuber has said it. I think that he got his freaking idea to kill his family from this commercial. Rewind the video and take a look at the commercial and tell me that that's too much of a coincidence. Let's take a look at it again.
She's pregnant as well.
How far along?
14, 15 weeks.
In the commercial, you also have the explosion of fire. And we do know that he had a gas can with him in the back of his truck, or in his truck somehow. He had a gas can with him and he had a lighter. Tell me that that's too much of a coincidence. for that to be a commercial and to be playing right now. And actually it might have been that just the energy of the earth allowed the commercial to come on at that exact same time to give the police officer and whoever was looking an idea and to look back upon and say, oh my gosh, wow.
That's why her friend said it was low blood sugar.
And see, I've got her friend leaving out here at 2 in the morning, I think.
And I do want to mention also that I think that Chris looked away after he saw the commercial and he saw the fetus coming up. He knew that same commercial, so he looks away. And I think that he looked at the police officer to gain the police officer's eye contact at that moment. And I think he wanted to gain the police officer's eye contact and talk to him about how Shanann was pregnant, to take the officer's eyes off of the screen, because the officer would have seen oil and known that Chris works in the oil field, and the officer would have seen a skull and explosion. It's incredible.
Did you go check if anything was missing around your house?
There wasn't nothing, like, it was all the old blankets and stuff. And then her nightstand. Her phone was still there.
Walks away because he wants to be removed from the situation. He does not want to be there anymore, physically, mentally. He doesn't want to. He's caught.
She dropped her off at 1 in the morning, right?
My doorbell said 1:48. She came in.
This is her February at 1:48.
Just as soon as it picks up motion, it like back off. Okay. I thought she.
That was the start of the video.
Yep. 1:48.
In the morning.
Defensive body posture, the arms
I
crossed in
did
front.
pick her up going into the house though.
It didn't. And I usually pick him up when he comes walking through here.
Mm-hmm.
I pick him up. So it doesn't show her walking into the house.
It's interesting to see that Nate is only talking to the police officer now. Almost this whole time, he was not really paying attention to Chris anymore. He's just talking to the police officer now. Because now it's about you, buddy. So here, I'm offering this evidence to the police officer. You're not involved anymore. I'm not talking to you.
Or she would have walked by when he saw him.
Shaking his head. Shaking his head, yes. Very nervous.
The other dogs. They see all these people coming in and they're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Sucking his two lips together. He's at a loss for words. Doesn't know how to get out of this now. He keeps on searching his pockets for nothing. He's searching his pockets for nothing. He's just trying to get rid of his nervous body energy.
And you know it's still live because it's 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm. How long does it typically record for?
30 seconds, I believe, at a time. But this is at 1:48, and then the next one I have is 1:05, whatever. So nothing, no cars came through, because I guarantee with the headlights, it picked up the headlights
Oh, yeah.
automatically.
And my evidence said that at 5:27, my garage door was left open.
Now he keeps reiterating that. He said that earlier, that his garage door was left open at 5:27, because he's still trying to insinuate that something, must be wrong and she must have still left the house because look, my garage door was left open, or something's faulty with the alarm system or something. He's still on that, because he's just put together everything from his whole day and realizes that he is defeated.
But that could have been the sensor as well. It says it was shut during the day, but I think when Nikki's son, he may try to move the door around, maybe when they were trying to get in the garage
Right.
door.
It's a lot of stuttering.
The laser there.
A lot of stuttering.
Because my alarm started going off.
Well, I know he said the front door he tried going in, but he had the lock up,
That's for
so
the
that
kids,
set
so
it
they don't
off,
get out.
right?
Our remote on the outside doesn't work anymore. It got wet. The whole radio on the back.
So yeah, that was it.
All right, appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Hopefully something comes up.
He just said thanks to Nate, but he really means thanks for nothing. Because Nate is the one who basically, besides Nikki Atkinson, Nate, the neighbor, is the one who basically put in their collective, things that they did that day that brought about his capture. He's glad he can now walk out of the situation. He's anxious to get out of the house.
Mind if you just want to go talk to him? I'm going to get his info real quick.
And I think that when he walked out the door just then, he knew that the police officer had more to say to Nate. He's going to talk about him and the suspicions and everything right now.
No. Mind if you just want to go talk to him? I'm going to get his info real quick. No.
Back and forth, and if you look, he never looks his stuff in and out of the garage ever.
Right.
And it doesn't look like he came from right here. It looks like he came from down the street. And then the other thing that doesn't make sense is why would he pull past this part? You can see him pull past.
Are you able to record this?
I'd have to call Comcast so I can get him to do whatever. But watch, you'll see him get out. And he walks back and forth a couple times. To be completely honest with you.
So we can understand that when somebody is your neighbor and you are the neighbor of somebody else, you probably know a little bit more, kind of more intimate things about your neighbors than somebody who doesn't live next to them would. So when Chris left the house and he goes, he's not acting right, it's because he's got more of an intimate knowledge of maybe how Chris behaves and how his wife behaves. We do know that Nate, his first thing, the very first comment that he made to the police officer, I guess, in one of his interviews or when he was initially sort of asked, I don't know if it's in this footage or not, I can't remember, but he did say that they argue a lot and that Chris gets crazy, and he screams or he gets crazy is what he said. So let's take that into account. And we do know that the first things out of your mouth are usually the things that are true, not the 1,000th thing that comes out of your mouth. The first thing.
My wife and I were kind of wondering when she was on vacation if something happened, because I've heard them full out screaming at each other at the top of their lungs.
There we go.
It gets crazy.
Does he? And that's pretty recently.
Yeah. I'm guessing that's why she went and visited people, is because she wanted to get away from the situation.
Do you have your ID handy?
The neighbor and Nikki's son and Nikki herself must have a good relationship. They almost all have a good relationship because of the way that Nikki's son just walked inside of the neighbor's house and ate.
Explaining himself over and over what he's getting exactly what he's doing exactly, because that's not him. He usually lives by it. Well, that was always back there.
What's your phone number?
303-905-7885. It just seems kind of odd to me. Why would he pull that truck up and go to the garage?
Right.
Yeah, I've never seen him pull back.
I've never seen him. If he loads his stuff, he normally just walks back and forth because I get him on camera.
What does he usually load up?
All he usually has is a lunch box and a book bag, looks like a computer, and usually a water jug. That's it. But the fact that he was in here and explaining to it over and over and over.
Well, odd.
Now, what I believe is that Shanann's body went into the back of the truck bed, the part of the truck that is not showing on Nate's surveillance camera, the part of the truck that Chris backed into the garage, which would be the truck bed, not the part of the truck that any person would sit in. Because how is he going to drag an adult person's body into the part of the truck that you sit in, especially if that's the part of the truck that shows on the camera, and we didn't see him drag anything very heavy and lift something with effort and put it into that part of the truck. It had to be the truck bed. That was the only part of the truck that didn't show on Nate's surveillance camera, and it's the part where he can pick up big adult's body and put it into the back of the truck bed. And there was another YouTuber who also mentioned that there is a shadowy figure, which would be Chris, adult figure, in the surveillance when you zoom into it, and that figure is sort of struggling for a second, looking like they're picking up something very big and heavy and putting it into the back of the truck bed. So Chris's story about putting Shanann into the part of the truck that people sit in, and that back seat that people sit in, and putting her on the floor, and having Bella and Celeste, his daughters, sit in that seat in the back seat of the truck, and have their mother's dead corpse near their feet. I don't believe that, because how come we didn't see him hauling something very heavy and big into the back seat of the truck on this part of the surveillance camera that is showing the back of the truck and doesn't show the truck bed?
He doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if he's loading his stuff, why isn't he walking back and forth? But I can't see what he's doing in the back of the truck because he pulls into the garage. And he knows my camera's there.
Any other neighbors have cameras around here, you know?
They have to.
I'm sure a bunch of them do, but not that I know of.
Okay.
You guys looking out?
Hey, I'll look at it.
But yeah,
I'll do a search here in a minute.
all these Fords kept coming up missing, so we moved in here, I put this in. And like you said, someone was breaking into it. He said that someone was breaking into his toolboxes of his truck. So I told him he could park his truck out there in case they saw something. Diesel, I know you want to go play with the baby so bad.
Her mom was texting me that we were in work. We have a GPS tracker on the truck that says everywhere he goes.
Okay.
That's another thing. Nikki just walked in and said, Shanann's mom just texted me and said that there's a GPS on Chris's work truck, so we can find out everywhere he goes. It's like, was he so evil that day, and was he so, into the evil spirit that he couldn't even think clearly? He had to have known that there was GPS on his truck as an employee of Anadarko.
Do you think it's, look at the,
I know, I'm
kinda
trying
odd.
to.
No, I'm just saying it's kind of odd that he pulled never backs his truck into the
That's
driveway.
what her friend Christina that did it.
Diesel.
Got her next. She's like, he never backs his truck up. Her mom said it too. She's like, he carries his stuff out of the house. He
Yep.
doesn't back his truck up.
Well, I have him on camera doing that when he does it. Because when he was parking his truck over here, the other thing that was odd is while she was gone, he kept parking his truck and her car over here. And I used to see him walk out of his house right
He
here.
took the car out of the garage.
Oh, the car was parked over there for a long time, like a couple days.
This was past weekend?
No.
It was when she was gone for the 6 weeks.
Oh,
How many of you think that his car or his truck was parked in this area that they are talking about right now? How many of you think that Chris parked his truck in that area to sort of avoid the to avoid the neighbors or to avoid Nate's surveillance camera because he was bringing Nicole Kessinger, his Gorgon lover, over during that period of time of the 6 weeks when Shanann was gone? How many of you believe that? Because I think that might have been a reason for what they are explaining and in the position and where Chris parked his truck for those 6 weeks.
But I thought it was kind of odd that he never parked in front of here or right here. He said someone broke into his truck and he parked over here. I have no idea. Hey, he's acting so suspicious. He's normally, you can ask them, he's normally quiet, real subdued. He's over here telling you 3 times what he took out, what he did, what he did, what he did. He's very, he never talks. So the fact that he's over here blabbing his mouth makes me kind of suspicious of something.
yeah, but I mean, put yourself in his situation.
Oh, I agree.
You know, anyone's going to be nervous. You don't know what to do.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying the way he told you 3 times what he brought with him, why is he telling you exactly what he brought with him instead of saying, oh, they didn't see anybody out here, he didn't see anybody doing anything?
A police officer just said, oh, but put yourself in his situation. You don't know how you would react. The police officer knows that Chris is suspicious, and he does suspect Chris of a lot of different things right now. Probably a lot of things going through his head as a trained police officer. But police officers don't want to tip anybody off and let anyone know that someone is a suspect, especially while things are still happening and they don't know where Shanann and the children are yet. The police officer is not going to sit there and use his words to agree with what Nate is saying. He's going to be neutral.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Why is he so worried about you knowing what he's carrying out? That's all I'm saying.
The detective's talking.
What's that?
Your detective's not talking to him.
He's talking to him right now? Okay.
This area, we had got it on camera if they're coming in and out and stuff.
Possibly. I mean, it didn't pick her up going in from when you dropped her off.
But
though,
I
so
did wait. I know she made it in the house because I waited till she shut the front door.
Right. But his video just showed you
Yeah, I know.
backing out, so there's a gap there that
Yeah.
didn't pick up.
Do neighbors have cameras?
I'm gonna walk it here in a minute.
Pretty sure he doesn't. But it wouldn't surprise me if the people next door do.
Right. Yeah, I don't see any on that one or that one. Just
Yeah,
looking, but
he doesn't either. He's got a big old German Shepherd that he says is his protection.
yeah. Works a little better than a camera.
If he was out here right now, you'd know.
Yeah.
Barney gets a little crazy when he sees people he doesn't know. He's knocked out the fence post, or the pickets,
Yeah.
because he runs and hits the fence. He's knocked the pickets down. Oh, her mom warned me when we first moved in. Her mom
Hello?
was like, that dog's so mean.
Yeah.
Living in the sort of in a country area or in a sort of area that they live in is a lot more personable than living in a big metropolitan sort of city. Like I live in Los Angeles, and your neighbors don't necessarily know you. You see new faces all the time, but this is a different dynamic where they live, you know, in Colorado and everything. Neighbors know a lot about each other. They see each other all the time. So them sort of talking about, you know, what goes on in the neighborhood and how the neighbor's dog and everything are, you know, these are the sort of small things or big things that Chris did not count on or did not anticipate.
Did she walk
I don't know.
the driveway or did she walk through the garage?
She walked through the right here because I pulled up. Do you want to talk to the police officer? This is her mother.
Hello? Hey, how are you? Right. Right. So how would you describe their relationship recently? Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Comment below if you think that red bottle right there is the gas can, that maybe Chris might have had in his truck on that morning.
It keeps beeping.
That's probably just technical.
Nikki's not leaving until she gets a better answer of what's going on.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Gas can right there.
Right.
But you know what? It couldn't be the gas can because this footage, I don't think that he would have went back to his truck during this entire footage to go and retrieve the gas can and put it back, because we are still going on throughout the day when he is caught. So actually, no, that probably wasn't the gas can. He probably has another gas can in his truck because he was caught with one. Or he did mention
Right.
one.
That's kind of the impression everyone's telling me. We're not finding her purse. Right.
Everyone now is just in thought. Nate and Nikki are standing here just in thought, thinking.
Yep. Yeah, I've already looked back there.
Shanann's mother must feel so awful that she is not in the same state as her daughter and she can't be there at her house right now with what's going on. She must feel so awful and they're in a different state, North Carolina. Especially since she had that, she had something whispered to her daughter's name in the middle of the night and she knew something happened.
Right. Not yet. We're just trying to figure out if she's missing at this point. And right. Mm-hmm. That started today. What school is that? Primrose? What town is that in?
Now, why in the world would Chris call Primrose School, which is a school that the children were supposed to start attending on that day? Why would he call that morning and let the school know that his children weren't going to be attending? Doesn't that make you look guilty? If you want to look like your wife disappeared with the children and you don't know where she is, then that's not a very smart thing to do, to call the school and say, my children want to be attending, we're moving or whatever. Don't you think that maybe if you get caught up with the police officers coming to your house and you still want to try to get away with it, that's not something you should do? Don't you think that the police officers can contact the school and they'll say, well, the father called us this morning and says they're not coming in? He is a very, very stupid person.
Okay. No, that was this morning at like 5:30.
Now, we do know from the autopsy that Shanann did not fight back, or there were no signs that she
Okay.
fought back. How many of you believe what I believe, which is that she might
Okay.
have been asleep or been in a state where she did not know what was going to happen to her when Chris put
3050?
his hands around her neck and choked
Okay.
her out, and that might be the
All right,
reason
yeah, as soon as we find
that
her
she
something
did
out,
not fight back,
we will let you know.
because she possibly was asleep or surprised by the attack
Right.
and didn't have the chance to fight
Right.
back.
You got a minute?
That's the detective.
Chris? Hey, you okay if we just walk through there? And then look at her phone if it's still up there?
Yeah, okay. I guess.
That was a nervous reaction from him to the detective walks up to him and asks him, do you mind if we take a look in the house? And then he looks towards the outside, to the other people's houses and points that direction, and then points back into his garage door to say, oh, where should we go to get inside my house? Over there or over here to my garage door? That was very nervous, and he had no thought in that body movement that he just did. Because, of course, you cannot point to the outside. We have to go in. He just asked to go inside your house. Let's watch that again.
Chris? Hey, you okay if we just walk through there? And then look at her phone if it's still up there?
Yeah, okay. I guess.
Oh, I guess we'll go in this door in my garage. No, go outside. He wants to search outside, idiot. So nervous.
Phone's in here?
Yes.
Or upstairs? This is hers?
He shuffled up the stairs pretty nervously as well. He didn't just step up the stairs in a normal way.
Do you have any current pictures of her?
Trips.
They're pretty recent though.
What's that?
This strip's pretty recent.
That was last year.
I believe that he takes the officer all around the room when the officer first asks to see some pictures, some recent pictures of his wife. He takes the officer around the room first, and I believe that that's because he is trying to look for anything that may be incriminating against him. So he's trying to look at the room really fast before he shows the officer any pictures. He could have just went straight into the pictures. He knows what's in his room and he knows where the pictures are, but he didn't do that. And he also didn't show the officer a picture that was recent, because the picture that they're looking at now, Chris is telling the officer that it was from a year ago. The officer asked to see recent pictures, which will probably be in Shanann's phone. We're not sure if there are any more recent pictures that are more recent than a year anywhere around the house.
Go for it.
Shanann was very good at decorating. She decorated her house very well. Could have been a side hobby, side gig. Nikki Atkinson is not leaving until she gets a better idea of what has went on and where her friend and the daughters are.
Suitcase yet?
Yeah. No, it's downstairs.
Is that the one down there?
Yeah. Sorry.
That one's empty. I didn't see anything on those. Right here.
So, their daughter, Jessica, she's kind of
The tree nuts?
she thinks that she's doing that, but they're
It's great detective work to look around the sink like that and on the faucet and everything. Nikki just told one of the police officers that the daughters, or at least Celeste, is allergic to tree nuts. And what Chris has referred that whole, Shanann reacting to not giving her children any nuts and having everybody, being aware that Celeste is allergic to nuts, Chris called that and termed that coin Nutgate. And I want to kind of know why he termed that coin Nutgate. If any of you guys know why he would call it nut and then gate, please tell me that in the comments below, because I don't know what he was referring to by calling it Nutgate. Is that whole word a term that you use when people are crazy, or I don't get it. great detective work, and I think that there was another YouTuber who had mentioned that the reason why the police officers chose to release this body cam footage was because of the great detective work that the police officers did in this case and how they caught Chris very quickly afterwards. Or else they wouldn't have released it. We don't usually see body cam footage of crimes or different encounters with the perpetrator. Now it has become personal. So now that the officer has seen the pictures of Shanann, now he's really determined to figure out what's going on with this, because now it's gotten personal. He's put a face to this case, which would be Shanann and the children.
No, I was thinking it was closer. It was the other ones had it kind of half made. Dry.
That's Bella's room, the older daughter, 4 years old. Her room is a violet color, and Celeste, this is Celeste, the 2-year-old. Her room is a beautiful aquamarine color. It's very eerie to see that now, knowing what happened to them. They weren't able to live their entire lives out on the earth. Father, person that was supposed to protect them, took away from them, took away their existence from the earth. All the effort that Shanann put into making her home beautiful and making her life beautiful and her children's life beautiful, to be taken like this in such an ugly way by the person that was supposed to protect them.
What's this door right here go to? It's locked. Do you have a key for it?
Yeah, they wake up and they'll just go right here and just play.
So I'm going to stop the video here, guys, and we'll pick up on part 3 of my commentary and thoughts on the Chris Watts surveillance. Thank you for watching this, and I hope that you guys will watch part 3. I'll try to get that video out as soon as I can. Thank you very much, guys. We will see you later. Please do watch part 3. Have a very wonderful day.